So I'm going to actually hand over to Rachel to give you a bit of an overview about the project and how it came about. And then I'm going to talk through some of the kind of logistics and actually do the classic Zoom thing of sharing my screen and just kind of walking you through the application form and some of the kind of queries that we've had around sort of payment and the dates and the structure and so on. And then we'll have a kind of open time at the end for any kind of questions or queries that you all might have. So Rachel, over to you.
Thanks, Anna. So just to give you a little bit of history and kind of context for where the ARRN programme has come from. If you don't know of us as a charity, Raw Material Music and Media has been around for a long time, about 30 years. I've been in post as CEO since July 2020, and Tamara joined us that September. And we've been really revitalising and redefining the organisation since that time. We're based in Brixton, we own our own building, and a large part of our programme is about supporting people experiencing mental ill health. We do that at our building through a number of creative courses, and we also run an outreach programme called InReach at Lambeth Hospitals, which Tamara can tell you a bit more about. We've been running this work since 2012. It's won awards, it's very highly regarded and very, very much needed by the communities that we serve in South London. And we were very fortunate to get one of 24 awards from the Bearing Foundation last year under a scheme called Ethnically Diverse, Creatively Minded and Ethnically Diverse. And in a discussion with the CEO of the Bearing Foundation, David Cutler, he observed that as an organisation, we were one of the only organisations whose tutors, whose artist practitioners were actually representative of the communities that they were serving. And actually there was a real, they had found in the sector, there was a real lack of artist practitioners who, from ethnically diverse backgrounds, basically. And I found this really interesting and wondered what the reasons behind that could be and how we could offer more support to people from ethnically diverse backgrounds who are supporting communities where we know that particularly African and Asian communities are disproportionately represented in the mental health kind of sector, particularly because of kind of the systemic racism that people have felt and everything that's come from that. And obviously we know more about that, we've learned more about that in the last 2 years or those of us who hadn't experienced it have learned more about that and been trying to think about ways that we can kind of act. So this programme is a response to that, and it's something that I started talking with the Arts Council about after the conversation with Bearing Foundation, and an artist who also works at the Arts Council called Akash Barania, who is themselves a practitioner working in arts and health. And Akash supported us working with London Arts and Health and the Arts and Health Hub, who sadly can't be here today, to develop this programme that is really about providing a network, inspiration, support, practice sharing, and on-the-job training for people working in health settings who would identify themselves as ethnically diverse and in fact face some of the same systemic racism challenges that the communities that we all serve do as well. So I hope that gives you the kind of context for where this has come from. And we've been working really hard, all three organisations since then, to kind of design a programme that we hope will really serve the people who take part in it and give a really great experience and hopefully a network that will stay together and support each other, beyond the confines of this programme as well. Yeah, that's probably a good place to stop.
Fantastic, thank you, Rachel. So what I thought I would do, probably just chat for sort of 10 minutes or so through some of the documents and the kind of web page. I've popped the link in the chat, and then we'll just open it up to questions. So if you have really specific queries, raise your hand. We'd love to hear from everybody, or pop that query in the chat to one of the hosts. That's absolutely fine. So I'm just going to share my screen. I hope everybody can see this okay. Tamara, you're at the top. Give me a thumbs up if you can see my, that'll be great. So this is the Artists Represent Recovery Network webpage. It also exists on Raw Material and Arts and Health Hub. So if you would like to access this information on the other partner organisations' websites, it's exactly the same information on all of our websites. So wherever you feel most comfortable to kind of go. And sorry, before I dig into this, very briefly, let me just tell you about London Arts and Health. I realise I didn't introduce myself. So we are a sector support organisation in London, supporting practitioners, organisations, anybody working in the field of creative health. So if you don't know about London Arts and Health, please do sign up to our newsletter. We have a newsletter that goes out every couple of weeks. We run lots of events and training, and also we're just really here to help kind of connect and support. So if you have you know, an organization you want to get in touch with, or you're not sure, you know, what to do next in your own research or kind of work, we're here to help you figure that out. So please do drop us a line. Anyway, so into the program. So the web page gives you just the kind of basics of the information that you might need for your to understand how to do your application. And the main kind of point here is that the training will take kind of place next year. So it is quite a long lead time, but we really wanted to make sure that the application form was open for a long time, so that people, you know, sometimes writing applications, gathering the information just takes a while. So so it's running for a while, so you've got lots of time to kind of put your application in. And the project is funded by the GLA, the Greater London Authority, and Arts Council England, but very specifically London funds. So that's why it is a London programme at the moment. So the offer, what is the Artists Represent Recovery Network? So it's going to be a cohort of 10 artists, okay? So there'll be 10 people kind of taking part in this, this long training. And what you will receive is the following. So there will be 6 paid group sessions. So this is sessions facilitated by our lead facilitator, who is from Raw Material, and Rachel and Tamara can tell you more about G-Day in a second. You will receive compensation for these sessions. So you are being paid to attend this training. We were really passionate and really clear about this. This is your time, and it is, you know, training, professional development. And there'll be lots of inspiring and diverse guest speakers from the sector coming to talk to you about all different kinds of artistic practice, safeguarding, anything that you might want to know about. You will also receive 3 hours of private online support with an arts psychotherapist. And that is not remunerated. It is just a free offer. You do not have to take us up on that offer, but those 3 hours are there if that's something that you feel like you would like to access and kind of, you know, as part of the training. There will also be 4 action learning sessions. They are 5 hours long each. And I think we've decided that you need to attend 2 of those action learning sets, and I'll talk a little bit more about completion of the training as well. And then also we have this fantastic opportunity. So 2 days of creative sessions working on the wards. And again, those are remunerated. So the 10 artists will receive £200 a day to deliver, so a total of £400 to deliver your own practice, your own ideas on the wards. And finally, when you complete the programme, you get some seed money. And again, that's very light touch. We might ask for a very short proposal, or to kind of work with the cohort and all the facilitators, all the organisations, to just think through what is it that you want to do with that seed money. And that could be for undertaking more training. It could be developing an idea or some partnerships, buying materials, or just kind of contributing to your own work, your own practice, and what you want to do next. The eligibility, so to be eligible to apply, you must identify as being from an ethnically diverse cultural background. You must be a freelance artist or creative practitioner living and working in London. And we also want to prioritise 3 to 5 places that are what the Arts Council kind of call priority boroughs. So that's Brent, Barking and Dag, Croydon, Enfield and Newham. We're asking artists who apply to be age 25 plus and to have 3 years of kind of working in creative health, arts and health, or kind of participatory community practice. We've also tried to give you in advance as much as possible the dates. And I appreciate there's not times attached to these dates, but these are dates that you will be undergoing these kind of half-day sort of creative trainings. And we'll be working very much with the 10 artists in the cohort to figure out when, when will be good times for them to be on placement in ward and stuff. So there'll be lots of support, and that will be very much in negotiation with the cohorts. And finally, how to apply. So I'm actually going to jump over to the next screen. There's lots of buttons and links on the web pages, and I'll pop this in the chat afterwards as well. But we have this lovely application form, and some of you might have already applied, and hopefully it wasn't too onerous, it wasn't too annoying. We really tried to keep it as kind of short as possible, but there is an online application form. Again, if you need support with that, we can absolutely give that. And if you prefer to do this via video, if you'd rather submit a video, a short video answering the questions, that's also absolutely fine. The application form, again, gives you the kind of criteria and sort of any FAQs that you might have. And really, it's just a series of hopefully kind of straightforward questions. Tell us about yourself, and tell us more about your work. What is your artistic practice about? What have you been up to over the last sort of few years, etc., etc. What would you like to achieve? Why do you want to do the program? What would you like to get out of the program? So as I said, I'll pop this link in the chat once I've stopped sharing my screen. The final thing I just wanted to kind of land on, and again, I appreciate this is a lot of kind of screen sharing and a lot of documents. So we have a kind of application terms and conditions. So again, it's quite wordy, but hopefully it just kind of covers off any sort of queries or questions that people might have. So again, if you're feeling unsure about something, this is a good place to kind of check. I think what's useful to note is when the application process closes. So it closes on the 20th of October, so next month. And we will be shortlisting and kind of making our decision in November, like early sort of November. And the cohort of 10 will be informed by the 20th of November. So again, we've given ourselves actually a bit of time just to kind of think about how to kind of create this brilliant cohort of artists. Finally, I thought I just kind of run over this. I thought it'd be useful. The kind of fees and expenses, it's really broken down here in detail so you can understand when you might be paid. So London Arts and Health, we are essentially acting as the grant holder. So we will be issuing payments promptly, I promise you. And essentially the ask is that once you've attended a session, we will kind of issue that payment. So all you would need to do is kind of give us an invoice, and we can pay you back for that session, for attending that session. And I think something that's just interesting to note is completion. So again, the three organisations, we had a lot of chats about this because we know that life gets in the way sometimes, and it's really hard sometimes to, sort of plan for every eventuality. Everybody has, stuff happening. I've had childcare issues today. It's all going on for my first Monday back at work. But what we basically ask is for artists to kind of warrant payment for their engagement in the program, that they attend at least 4 out of the 6 group sessions, that they attend 2 of the action learning sets, and that they deliver the full 2 days of activities on the wards. And we also ask, hopefully, people want to do this, that people are kind of responsive and engaged. So we are here to facilitate that network. We can set up Slack channels, we can do whatever the cohort want and need. And yeah, hopefully that all makes sense. And if people kind of fail to engage, essentially, we reserve the right to bring in another artist to kind of, take that place, because we really want everyone, as many people as possible, to kind of benefit from this. So hopefully that answers some questions already. I'm just going to stop sharing. Rachel, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about what might happen on wards before we open the floor to questions.
Sure, maybe I'll take that one. So at the moment, the way we do it with our, as Rachel mentioned, we have an in-reach program. And so that program at the moment, we send 2 tutors, so 2 facilitators into a ward. They're usually on the ward for about an hour. And at the moment, I think we're working across seven mental health wards at Lambeth Hospital and also the Maudsley Hospital. And basically those sessions, I think from what our facilitators have found, that, you know, we're a music organisation, so we're coming at it from a music practice. It is about kind of going in with a bag of tools and being ready to really be in the moment. So as I'm sure a lot of you can appreciate, you know, we all know how we can't predict how we're going to feel on any given day, and that's amplified quite strongly in a mental health ward. So I know that our facilitators, you know, I've heard beautiful stories of some days it might just be talking about songs that they like and sharing, making playlists together. Other days it'll be writing lyrics and writing songs together. Other days it might be they go in with a microphone, they go in with sometimes little DJ decks. So it is always quite different. And I mean, the beauty of working on a more long-term basis in some of these wards is you do sometimes get the chance to develop something, you know, across a few sessions, which is really beautiful as well. But again, I think really the key to this is just being in the moment and being flexible. Before you all enter onto the wards, there'll be little things we'll cover, like certain wards have certain requirements that you need to just in terms of sign in and things, and then also what you can take onto the wards. For example, you can't take batteries onto a ward. So there will be health and safety things to consider. But as I said, and as Anna said, that's what we were here for. So we'll walk you through all of those sort of logistical details. But yeah, in terms of an arts practice, I guess, I mean, you're all professionals in what you do, and you all know your practice best. So I guess what we're trying to do is run sessions where you can look at your practice differently and think, how could I shape what I do into all of these different ways that could work with people who could be coming at it from any different angle on any certain day. But I tell you, we constantly have really beautiful stories of, you know, occupational therapists telling us of some members of a ward who, you know, won't come out of their space for anything, but for the music session, then suddenly they're there at the front singing a song. You know, it's quite, and that's the power of what we all do. So I think it will be amazing to see what you all do with it. Hope that gives a bit more of an insight.
Thanks, Tamara. Rachel, Tamara, is there anything else that you think I've missed before we open for questions?
Rachel, would it be worth just doing a quick, I know there's a link, but a quick explanation to action learning? Some people might not know what that is. Do you want to take it?
So action learning is a really kind of powerful group problem solving exercise. It's a process which a facilitator will take you through, where the group will help an individual, anyone in the group who's got a challenge that they're kind of grappling with, usually a professional one in this context, and the group will go through a process of learning to ask open questions in order to help the individual come up with their own answers. So it's about moving away from the idea of kind of giving advice or talking about your own experience, and more trying to help someone work out their own solutions. It's a really interesting process, and it's one that is used across many other sectors, including the NHS. And it can be very bonding for a group. So we feel that it will really kind of add value to the whole experience of being in the network.
Thanks, Rachel. Yeah, so the floor is yours. Please ask us any questions, anything you would like to know more. We will try our best to answer those queries. Yeah, so pop your hand up, come off mute, add anything to the chat, whatever you need to ask us. So I've had a question. Is there a level of experience this program is pitched at? That's a really good question. And I think, Rachel, you might want to take this as well, but we are kind of thinking about practitioners who've had a few years experience. So we do say 3 years minimum experience. And that's just because of the nature of the work, like that might be undertaken on the wards, and sort of needing a kind of a level of, and again, it might not be that you have experience working in a mental health ward, and that's fine. You've got a participatory experience, practice, or a different kind of arts and health practice. That's absolutely fine. And that's what the program is here to do, to kind of offer that training. But we do ask that you have a minimum of 3 years, and that you can kind of, for want of a better word, evidence that somehow in your application. So that might be sharing links to work, or a website or a video, or anything that kind of shows documentation of your work. Rachel, do you think that answers the question?
Yeah, I think that's correct, and I think exactly as Anna says, and Tamara would, I'm sure, agree with this. This is not an easy setting to work in. It requires a level of resilience and self-knowledge, and capacity to kind of, work flexibly and adapt to the situation. So this is not for an emerging program. And to be fair, there's a lot of programs out there that are for emerging artists. So it's actually quite nice to be offering something for people that are kind of mid-career. Yeah.
Wow. Thanks, Rachel. Another question. So will there be extra support on the ward when the sessions are delivered from either the staff at the hospital or from the organisation? Tamara, maybe you can take that one.
Yeah, so each ward is different, but generally the occupational therapist on each ward we go to, we do request that they are there, because obviously your primary focus will be to deliver a creative program. And if if some people on the ward need some more health support, that's where we ask the OTs to come in. And also, the OTs know the members of these wards better than we do, so they might be able to give us some insight in terms of in terms of trying to approach it this way with them, or little insights like that. So definitely we ask the OTs to be involved. So I'm gonna have to reach to Rachel. We aren't sending in it's just the 2 facilitators on each session, isn't it? Yes. So in terms of like another artist practitioner, you won't have an additional practitioner. There'll be 2 of you, always 2 of you though. We're never going to send any of you in on your own. There'll always be 2 of you in the session. And the point of all of these extra sort of development sessions is that you have a chance to really get to know each other. So we would hope by the time you're going into wards together, you're not feeling like strangers. That's the goal.
And Tamara, what is an OT?
Good question.
You might not know what that acronym is.
An occupational therapist. So I guess the 2 terms that we use a lot at Royal Care Coordinator or occupational therapist, and basically they're the mental health workers working on the wards. So they'll be the resident people who are either in there every day working from a mental health perspective on the ward.
Fantastic, thank you. Yeah, and just to reiterate, you will kind of go in pairs. So, and again, that's a negotiation between the cohorts. So it might be that you want to work with someone who has like a completely different kind of artistic practice to you, and you're really complementary, or someone who maybe has something very similar to you, and you're sort of developing that together. I've had a really great question, so this is really interesting. So is there a preference for artists who work directly in health, i.e. like wards, over artists who work in participatory community settings? I'm going to take that first and say like no. So like really we want like a really sort of diverse cohort in every sense of the word, like including artistic practice. I work in health. I definitely am not someone who works in a ward or a clinical setting. I work in a participatory setting. So we're really interested in like people who maybe this is their first foray actually into perhaps working in this kind of setting, and that's the idea of the training, to really kind of develop different artists with different kind of practices in those settings. So it will be a mix. We hope that we're a very neutral panel kind of selecting the cohort, and I wish Daniel was here from Arts and Health Hub because he would talk very eloquently about this. But yeah, we really want a kind of really mixed cohort in terms of like your work and your practice. And we won't be kind of favouring people who've, been working in wards for 20 years, particularly over like someone who maybe has a participatory or a community setting. It won't be that. Rachel, Tamara, does that feel like a satisfactory answer?
Yeah, I would totally agree with everything you said. I also would just like to follow on from that to say that in the selection process, the person leading that is Daniel from Arts and Health Hub, who some of you may know already, and Jide, who will be facilitating the sessions, will also be part of that process as well. So it won't just be the 3 white women that you see here doing the selection.
Rachel, can you actually, might be just a good moment to tell us a bit about Jide, who's going to be the sort of lead facilitator in his role in this programme?
Yes. I can't really speak highly enough of Jide. He is our co-chair. I know Tamara feels the same way. He's our co-chair at Raw. He's been working with raw material since before we joined the organisation. He was one of the people who helped set up Raw Sounds, which is our kind of very long-running mental health programme. He is a mental health specialist himself. He works for South London and Maudsley NHS Trust. But he's also an active anti-racism activist and advocate and worker. So he's leading at SLAM NHS, he's leading the BME Leadership Network. And he's also working with SLAM Recovery College on a long-running course that's been really well received called The Traumas of Racism. He's a trained mediator and coach and facilitator, so he really has such a lot of useful and insightful knowledge and experience to bring to this cohort, I think, which I think he'll be a wonderful person to lead this and to work with.
Thanks, Rachel. There's a question in the chat, and then I'm going to come to Abu, who has his hand raised. So the question was, how many places are there? How big will the cohort be? So there will be 10 artists like working together in this first cohort. And then Jide, who is the facilitator, and then sort of the guests, artists and sort of mentors as you're going through the training. So there will be 10 of you all together. So hope that answers your question. Abu, have you got a question for us?
Yeah, hey, just a little bit of clarification on the eligibility of it all. Where it says minimum 3 years of work in arts and health or community practice. Would community practice cover like volunteering? I've been volunteering at the Bethlehem since like 2017. Would that be valid?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, 100%. So I think just put that in your application form. And okay. I think, yeah, I mean, we're all nodding. Yeah, definitely.
Ah, cool. Yeah. Brilliant. Yeah, that's
great.
Thanks. Thank you.
No worries. Got a question in the chat. Are there any parameters in terms of who we want to work with in terms of mental health? And I guess that kind of means, actually, Rachel and Tamara, you can probably unpick that a bit better than I can, but I guess that means the question is really about what kinds of patients, what kind of people might be on the wards, and who can the artist expect to maybe collaborate and work with on the wards?
Yeah, so the 7 wards that we go across at the moment, they all differ quite a bit. Some are more sort of higher need, some are gender specific. They all do vary. And there are some wards that, you know, I would say are sort of the lower level of you know, the condition spectrum, and that's probably where we'll send facilitators at first. So there's a couple of wards that I know. You know, I mean, I guess the thing to say is that with all of these wards, it's worth being ready for anything. You know, as we've alluded to, they can be challenging experiences. But if you're going on to, say, a higher dependency ward, we'll definitely make that really clear to you and make sure that you're comfortable with that. In terms of condition specific, the wards aren't sort of condition specific. So you're likely to encounter a variety of sort of diagnoses within a single ward. I hope that clarifies. Let me know, Anna, if I can give any more info.
Yeah, sorry, the question was from me. And I was more thinking about in terms of the end user, not just about going into the wards, but in terms of who you want to work with in terms of the wider work that you do, because I do work in the communities, in community settings, but I also work with other professionals. And I was wondering about whether you were interested in people who work with other professionals. In terms of,
would that count in your experience when we were looking at your experience?
Yeah,
absolutely. You're still working in the community. You're still delivering. Okay. So yeah, no problem. Just tell us about everything that you feel is relevant.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Great. There's no more questions in the chat. So does anybody else have a kind of burning question or something that, yeah, Shiv, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, hi everyone. I was just wondering about this bit about evidencing the work you've done till now, in the sense of I've done quite a few workshops and stuff over the years. I still do them, but in terms of I don't have any, the kind of workshops you can't, unless you get consent from everyone, you can't put them on social media, you can't film them or anything like that. It just becomes a real big thing, and so I don't have any. I'm just trying to think about if I could get that consent to do one of the few ones upcoming. But yeah, like, is it what would you suggest if you haven't got any images or video or YouTube or any of that sort of stuff?
I totally hear that, because that's so my experience as well. Like, I just can't document who I work with. Like, I work with lots of kind of young, vulnerable people. So again, like, it could just be as simple as like a CV. So just detailing like maybe where you worked or the dates, the organization, maybe the participants, the people, the client group. And also what we ask for on the form is like a referee, which again, like, sounds really formal, like it's a job interview, and it's not that at all. Just someone that you might like collaborate with or have kind of worked with over your experience that we can have an email exchange with. And that's just really us kind of doing a bit of a sense check and finding out more about you. So again, like, if there's someone that you have collaborated with and who can, talk a bit about your workshops and stuff, that's great. That's enough. We totally get it. Like, not everybody has like glossy photos and a YouTube video. Like, I definitely don't have any of those things. So like, yeah, it could be a LinkedIn, it could be a website, it could be as simple as a PDF CV, which is absolutely fantastic. And all we need to kind of glean an understanding of, what you've done over your work life that's relevant. Does that answer the question okay?
Yeah, that's very helpful, thank you.
Yeah, no worries. There is another question in the chat, and this says, is there an opportunity to gain a qualification with this program, or is that what the seed money given at the end could be used for? Rachel, do you want to take this one?
There isn't through the program at the current time, although it's an interesting point. Certainly something for us to go away and think about. But I think, to be honest, for this the first time we're doing this, there's a lot of moving parts to it. So I think trying to throw in a qualification as well probably is going to be too much for us. In terms of using seed money at the end, I think that's fairly open. I think probably there'll be a place to make a case for it. If it will help your practice and help you help more people, then I think, yeah, why not?
Absolutely, yeah. Just to echo Rachel, I think that's what if you want to use that seed money to then go on and you found a course or towards something that's maybe more formal, that is your seed money to, and again, it's just making that case. And I think what we'd probably just literally ask for is like half a page or a kind of discussion with like someone from the program, and you can use that money to further your work in any way that you desire. Hopefully that answers the question. And another question, is there anything specific you're looking for in candidates other than what you've already mentioned? Like, who is your ideal candidate? Gosh, it feels like The Apprentice now. Candidate. I mean, that's quite hard to answer, actually, and I don't think I kind of want to answer it in a way. I think and Daniel, again, would talk about this so brilliantly, but actually it's about all 10 artists as a cohort. We don't just want like 10 of the same people who are all, I don't know, like amazing visual artists, and that's the only thing we want to like foster. It's really about like, all different kinds of art practices. And I think what we really are excited about in the application form is just understanding how it's going to help you. And that's the thing we're most interested in finding out. Like, if it's going to make that difference to you, that's what is most important, if that makes sense. Rachel, Tamara, would you agree with that? Yeah,
I think the only other thing that I would be looking for is a real kind of open heart, if you know what I mean, a kind of, a curiosity, a willingness to learn and to share, because I think you have to come to these programs with that approach, I think, and that attitude. You'll get the most out of it if you do. So if you can communicate that through your application, I think that will be powerful.
We've talked a lot in our planning about the dream of, you know, a cohort that will support each other. So we do really want people who are keen to get to know other facilitators, and we're hoping that those relationships will, you know, prosper on well beyond our involvement. So I think that openness is really important. We're hoping that not only will it upskill you, but you'll find other, you know, other facilitators that you can connect with and support each other.
Great. Is there any, we've got about 20 minutes left, so if you know, if people have more questions or queries, and it really can be anything, we will try our utmost to answer. Or is everybody feeling kind of satisfied now?
Great, we've done our job then.
So
thank you so much for coming, everyone.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'll leave the Zoom open for a few more minutes. So if you just suddenly something flashes into your mind, or you want to put it in the chat, Rachel tomorrow and I will be here for another 5 minutes. So you know, it's a soft close. If you need to leave, please leave. If you want to kind of hang around and just have another think, that's absolutely fine. We will put this video up on our website and social media in the coming kind of week. And again, just you can sort of contact any of us. I'll just drop an email in the chat again if you've got anything else that comes to mind from this Zoom. And yeah, thank you so much for attending and asking such fantastic questions. And yeah, we really hope that some people might feel inspired to apply. We're really excited to read everyone's applications. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. I feel like I've got a bit of a silly question.
No silly questions. Go for it. I could tell you wanted to ask something.
I kind of did, and I was like, well, should I just do it anyway and then see what happens? But I run a social enterprise, and we do loads of work with children and young people. And I've recently qualified as an art psychotherapist. And the reason why the program's really attractive is because I see it as a real opportunity to take what I've been doing and develop it for different contexts. But I have quite a lot of experience behind me, and so I don't know if that kind of will work for me or not.
I think apply. Like, again, I know it sounds a bit woolly, but we really want the cohort to be a real, you know, a really different kind of mix of different levels of abilities. Obviously everybody needs to have this minimum of 3 years, and that's just as much about protecting the artists and the people that might be kind of working with on ward. But you know, some people be very experienced, some people might be like sort of having we've had a few applications actually that are a bit more about a career change. So maybe they have an artistic practice, but this is something actually quite new and different, and like, you know, it's like fostering all of that. So I think your your experience and your interest in that idea of kind of maybe working in a slightly different context sounds really interesting. So I would definitely advocate to apply.
Yeah, and I guess the other thing that's really appealing about it is being able to work with more minority practitioners, because as somebody who works in a minority and is often asked to facilitate things, I'd really like to have a pool of facilitators where I can build those relationships with.
That's exactly one of the driving,
important.
because so many artists like yourself feel the same way, and
it's really hard.
Like they're the only one a lot of the times, or they're wheeled out to do, you know. So yeah, I really hope we can provide that. I just had a question. You said that your experience has been focused on children and young people so far. Is that
Yeah.
Did I get that right?
Yeah.
How would you feel then about working potentially an award that was, because most of our work's with adults at the moment.
That's exactly what's interesting, actually, because
Okay,
it's really hard.
great.
Like even on, so I don't know if you caught that bit, but I've just finished a psychotherapeutic training, and I've just qualified. But because all of my experience is with children and young people, I just got more children and young people.
Okay.
It's very hard to expand and offer work to adults. So we build training for professionals, but really that's the only work I do with adults. And I'd be really curious about whether our way of working would fit for adults, because it is quite a lot of play. It's quite playful. It's quite energetic, and I'd just be interested to see how that lands with.
I mean, I think that's a really good case to make in the application. It's exactly that. You know, it's as Anna says, we've got people who actually want to change career. This isn't even a career change. It's a chance for you to expand your practice, which seems to me like a really good, a good reason to want to do something like this. So I think that makes a strong case. Great,
thank you so much. It's so lovely to get a bit of an insight before applying.
And I hopefully the application process, we've tried to, obviously there's a certain amount of information that we needed, because there's a lot of money being invested, but hopefully it's not too onerous for you either. And Anna's kindly there to support artists as they make their applications as well. So this doesn't have to be it if you have other questions.
No, it's also like a real relief to have a training that is paid. Like yes. That also makes such a big difference, because I find myself through work being asked to do loads of things that are really important, particularly around the race issue and particularly in the current context, but that you kind of find yourself stretched really thin.
Of course, yeah, and giving up your own time for it.
Yeah. And kind of squeezing in as much as possible. So it's really nice to, that's another way that the edge comes off, because it's your time is paid. That's absolutely helpful.
Great.
Yeah. Fab.
So thank you so much.
Lovely.
Thank you for asking your question as well, and it wasn't a silly question. It's a really good, important question.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, take care. Bye.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.
So we'll bring the Zoom to a close now, I think. So if anybody has a sort of final question or anything they want to ask us, please do so. And then we'll bring it to a close in the next minute or so. Make some nice private messages saying thank you as well.
Thank you. Thank you. We look forward to seeing your applications.
Yeah.